welcome back. Let me just say how thrilled I am that you chose to watch episode 2 as I try to share the 3 reasons why I believe the Sabbath was really a ceremonial law. Like I said in the introduction and in episode number 1, I could automatically right now give you those 3, but I feel it's really very important that we're in agreement before I get to those 3 things. So today, we're going to take a deeper look at the hierarchy of the biblical law. Now, this hierarchy isn't something that I invented. There have been church theologians and historians throughout the centuries that have felt the same way, that 2 things exist. 1, there is a hierarchy within God's law. And 2, the Decalogue ultimately are categories of all the other laws that fall underneath them. The idea that the law has some type of hierarchy was actually presented by Jesus himself. In Matthew 22, verses 34 through 40, the Bible tells us, "But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together. And one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. 'Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?' And he said to him, 'You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments depend all the law and the prophets.'" I grew up traditionally with the King James Version, and that text would say, "On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets." And that's a really powerful idea. If something's hanging on something, well then whatever that is that's holding those other 2, it's really crucial. The bottom line is this: Jesus is sharing with us that there is a hierarchy to the law, and at the very top of that hierarchy are these 2 commandments: loving God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, and loving your neighbor as yourself. Not that I need anyone to support Jesus, but we see throughout history theologians supporting this idea. Augustine wrote, "All the divine commandments are reducible to these 2, love of God and love of neighbor." Thomas Aquinas wrote, "The precepts of the Decalogue are reducible to the love of God and the love of neighbor." J.I. Packer wrote, "The Decalogue is itself a summary, and behind it stands the 2 great commandments on which Jesus teaches the whole law depends." These voices, spanning 1,600 years of Christian history, all affirm exactly what Jesus declared, that the entirety of the law hangs on these 2 commandments. So if we were building a type of pyramid, at the very top of this hierarchy would be the 2 greatest commandments: to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. Well, then what would come underneath that? I would argue, and I think you would agree, it would be the 10 commandments, or as was often referred to, the 10 words. And then at the very bottom of our pyramid would be the 613 laws, as you could read in the book of Deuteronomy. The key point that I'm going to argue right now, though, is that simply because the 10 commandments are there together does not indicate that they are all part of the same nature. Just because the 10 are there doesn't mean that they are 10 of the moral law, 10 of the ceremonial, 10 civil. No. They're just a breakdown, a further fleshing out, if you will, of the very first 2. What does it mean to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul? What does it mean to love your neighbor as yourself? The 10 commandments just flesh that out more. But I would argue that the 10 commandments are not just 10 isolated moral laws. What I would argue is that they are categories of types of law that are still to be further fleshed out. But don't just take my word for it. Don't just say, well, this is some idea that Scott just concocted on his own. No, others have supported the same idea. John Calvin wrote, "The Ten Commandments are the heads of the doctrine of the law." Matthew Henry wrote, "The Ten Commandments are the summary heads of all the laws which follow." And Herman Bavinck wrote, "Each commandment of the Decalogue is a category into which many specific laws fall." These theologians are saying precisely what we've been observing in the Scripture. We could say, for instance, what does it mean to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul? And then as we get to the Ten Commandments, we find that the first four answer that question. While the second law, loving your neighbor as yourself, how does that get fleshed out? Well, we go to the other 6 of the Ten Commandments. But we encounter a sort of challenge because I don't know what it all necessarily means that I shouldn't bear false witness. I don't know what it necessarily means that I shouldn't commit adultery. I don't know what it necessarily means that I shouldn't have other idols. So what happens is the Ten Commandments then become headers for the laws that get fleshed out further in the 613. So the commandment, do not commit adultery, it becomes the heading for detailed sexual ethics in Leviticus. Do not steal. Well, that becomes the heading for restitution, property laws, and social justice. Honor your mother and your father. That becomes the heading for inheritance laws, family responsibilities. The Ten Commandments give the categories. The 613 explain how those categories played out in the covenantal life of Israel. So this hierarchy, affirmed by the Scripture, affirmed by Jesus, affirmed by theologians, it tells us something vital, that the Ten Commandments do not necessarily belong to one category of law. Some are moral, but some are ceremonial. Some are tied to Israel's covenant identity, but they are not all moral laws. They are a summary of Israel's covenant obligations. And that brings us to one of the key insights of this whole series. The Sabbath command in the Ten Commandments is not an isolated moral law. It is the head of a whole category of ceremonial laws. Weekly Sabbaths, festival Sabbaths, sabbatical years, jubilee, convocations, feast days, holy gatherings, purification cycles. Just as do not commit adultery heads the category of sexual ethics, just as do not steal heads the category of property and justice, the Sabbath command heads the category of ceremonial time laws. This is a very important clue to the nature of the Sabbath. So now that we understand, and I hope agree, that the top of the hierarchy, love of God, love of man, is then fleshed out as we go to the Ten Commandments, and these act as category headings, and then they are finally fully fleshed out in the 613 detailed applications. So now that we understand and hopefully agree on that, we're at a good position to answer the next question. What exactly was a ceremonial law, and why did God give it? And that is where we'll head in episode 3. If you're enjoying this, I would ask you to please like and follow. Please feel free to add any comments, though I'm not going to debate you. But feel free to chime in and let me know what you think so far. So, for Intoxicated by Grace, I'm Scott Roark. Hope to see you next time.